Hey YouTube, what is going on? Dark Strike Fighter here. Sorry about the terrible lack of video. I really don't have any lighting where I'm at. But I figured since it's been about 4 years and the new meta's changing and whatnot, I figured why not go ahead and post up a new video. This is actually something a little bit different from what I've done, but with all the ban list predictions and with the new ban list coming soon, I just wanted to make a couple theories of some of the cards that people, might expect on the ban list. But then there's also a few of what I say might not get as hard as what we're expecting. So, again, this is purely speculation. I'm going to start off here by saying, first off, is, of course, Zodiacs. Zodiacs have been dominant. They have been running rampant through the meta. They have literally been taking every single tournament front by storm in the TCG. Now, in the OCG, we all already know that they've taken such a big hit that there's a little side engine splash here and there, but Zodiacs are essentially dead. So, in the TCG, I do expect them to get hit heavily, because if they don't get hit heavily now, they're probably not going to for a while. And with the Mega 10s pushing out, the same thing happened with Shaddolls. They get their big reprints, everybody got a hold of them, and then within just about a few weeks later, boom, they were gone. But anyway. So, what I'm going to start off with is Zodiac Barrage. Zodiac Barrage is essentially the biggest setup engine for kill plays I have ever seen in my life. It is the free setup, the free pop. You see it ran in the pure variant. You see it ran in just about any variant that runs Zodiacs, because it's just that good for the deck. Now, what do I expect exactly? I say I see it coming to 1, because I don't see it being the biggest real threat in the game if certain threats are removed. So, next we look at the next option, which is Dryden, of course. Dryden, I don't want to neuter the deck, but we know that's what Konami's going to do. I see Dryden banned. Not at 1, because even at 1, just like a Dark Destroyer, I'm going to kind of modify Simo's quotes here, a Dryden is still a Dryden. It is a each turn costless pop. And that is just too good for this meta. Forcing your opponent, it's essentially a neg 2 with Dryden if it stays on the field for 2 turns. And you really don't have an opportunity to come back from that as much as you'd really like to. My current deck is Light Sworns, and it can come back, but it's just, you have to really wear out resources for it. And that's resources that sometimes you don't have, especially early in the game. Next, I would see Broad Bull. Broad Bull Chalk-a-9 is a lethal combination that pretty much makes Zodiacs viable, regardless of the format you are in, as long as they're both around. I will not say Broad Bull needs banned, but I will say that unless it does get banned, Zodiacs will still have plays, because they still have Tiger Mortar, they still have the Hammer Kong, they still have the everything, essentially. So, I can see them limiting or banning him, but if they ban him, they will only limit the Dryden. Next, we go into the idea of Chalk-a-9. Team APS said it best when they referenced that Chalk-a-9 is opening up too many plays. It's the very reason why people were able to go into Dryden, Dryden, Broad Bull, turn 1, and still make it viable. Now, if Broad Bull gets banned, they will still be going into Dryden and Tiger Mortar. If I believe that's still possible. Don't quote me on that, because I'm not 100% sure. But it's just too viable, because no matter what it does, like Rat Pier, Thoroughblade, Bunny Blast, Ram, all of it makes Zodiac viable into automatic plays. But they can't put the entire deck on the list, so why not just put some of the basic staples that are going to get hit anyway onto that list? So I say bring, Chalk-a-9 to 1. Now that we've gotten all that covered, we go Rapier, who's currently at 2. He's at 1 in the OCG, and he's really not making really big waves, mostly because Trident and Broad Bull are banned. But I don't really see any harm of keeping Rapier at 2, so long as they ban Broad Bull / Trident. Given you still have the big plays, but a big damaging board is easier to get over than a board that forces you to go forces you to pay an extra card just to get over it. So, the next concept I throw out there is the idea of Draco. Do I see Draco hit? Yes. Do I see it getting hit as heavily as people would think? No. I see maybe, and potentially, I can see the Diagram going to 1. That's almost a guarantee, in my opinion. Because Diagram is just being splashed into too many decks, it's being used in too many viable plays, it's just being overextended into too many options. People are even running it in the Invoked Dracos, they're running it in the Zoo Dracos, they're running it in Dinos. It's pretty much being used in everything shy of Cloudians. And that is a risk that can very seldomly be really afforded. So I could see them hitting that. Going into the Dinos, I see Sully and Overraptor. I see that card getting hit. I'm not going to say increasingly heavily, because even if you get rid of Zodiac, you will still have Draco there. You will still have the likes of the potential future of Light Sworns, and I'm not saying now, but potentially later if we get more support. I can see stuff like that actually potentially getting hit, like Overraptor. If they don't hit Overraptor, they need to hit Petit Pterodon or Baby Cerosaurus. I'm not saying hit Fossil Dig, because you don't want to kill off the actual searchability of the deck altogether. Dinos have just recently come back into power, and really they've been so long without it that hitting Fossil Dig and neutering the deck now would literally just do nothing but piss people off. Now, on with the rest of the generic support. I can see in terms of like just the rest of the game, we know that with set rotations and with the new trap card coming out, given it's inherently slower, I can still see Terraforming going to 1 or 2, either to push sales or because it's just being overly abused. Like, even if Diagram goes to 1, you still have the Invoked, and Invoked are running 3 of their field spell and then 3 Terraforming, which is just too overly consistent in terms of the Invoked engine, because we all know what Invoked is capable of with Alistair, and that's just pretty much game. So now we look ahead to some more of the support. Let's look at some of the stuff that's already on the list, shall we? I'm bringing up the idea of Trap Dust Shoot. I'm not going to say bring it back to 3, but I will say put it to 1. You're already running a Pointer of the Red Lotus. I am not a big fan of hand knowledge because really I feel this game changes too much, but the idea of shuffling a card back into the deck is much more viable for the players than really sending a card banished face up that they're just going to return back to their grave and then get back quickly, or they're even going to just get an effect off if they're playing a banished relevant deck, such as like Cosmo. I know people say Cosmo is not a relevant threat to the meta, but I very much disagree. I may not live where there's really big tournaments, but I live down here next to Knoxville now, and you see on a very regular basis Cosmo at roughly every locals. And that's down in Knoxville, that's down here in like Oak Ridge, even at some of the little local get-together tournaments that we don't even have a shop for here in La Follette or Jacksboro area. You just don't see Trap Dust Shoot because it's banned, but at the same time, a Pointer of the Red Lotus it's the same thing, but it's worse. And bringing it back to 1 won't make that much of a difference. It's already power crept out thanks to Omega. Next, I'll bring up the idea of Torrential Tribute. We already have Blind Obliteration, but Blind Obliteration is not a viable replacement for Torrential Tribute 100% of the time. And being the fact that it's a summon trigger, which is inherently worse as a trap card in this deck, and in any deck really in this meta, your only prayer is for it to stay alive long enough for you to use it. In which case, it's viable to a Twin Twister, a Galaxy Cyclone, a Cosmic Cyclone, whatever have you, Heavy Storm Duster. Any of that is a viable way to remove the Torrential Tribute, and that is not something that you can really afford to use. I say even at 3, Torrential Tribute would very rarely be used and wouldn't get much done. Next, we go to the idea of Book of Moon. We have Fairy Tale Snow. It's probably going to get hit to 1 anyway. So is Cyframe Lord Omega. So why not bring out Book of Moon and bring it back? I mean, sure, it's a quick play. Sure, it sets stuff face down, but links are not affected by it. In other words, you can't stop the World Chalice combo unless you can Book of Moon, in which case you have to set it face down, in which, again, just like with Galaxy Cyclone, Twin Twister, all that for Torrential Tribute, it's also susceptible to that as well. So it's really not that big of a deal. It's a neg 1. It's probably the best neg 1 in the game, but it's still a neg 1 at the point. Now, I bring up the fact of Ritual Beasts. I have never played them, and I have heard people talk about how good they were. But I honestly feel like they could have power creeped out at the point with the uprising of soon-to-be Magibullets and Weatheries. I feel like they're just going to be too susceptible to the column-based tactics. And with World Chalice spamming out the extra deck, it's really not hard for them to completely lock the extra deck off from them anyway. So I really feel like it's a capability of just outspeeding and outpowering the deck. So I would say bring their big fusion, what is it, Hyper something, the Ritual Beast fusion, bring it to 2. Given it's good at 2, I say 2 would still be a solid number rather than risk it at 3. We bring up the idea of, and this is going to make my nerves chill, El Shaddai Construct. Bring it to 1. Konami, I know that you know what I'm talking about. El Shaddai Construct will come back. It'll make a splash, but all in all, it is not going to be able to murder entire turns or murder entire games. It is a big card. It has a really good effect, but is it really going to be enough to stop the likes of Fairy Tale Snow being triggered more than once? Is it going to be able to stop the factor of anything like that? Plus, it'll let people re-jump on the factor of buying back Shaddais. It'll bring back some Shaddai players because they'll just be excited to have Construct back. Then you have a few other options, just some of the basic ones that I say they ought to bring back. Like, bring back Monster Reborn to 1 because, if I'm not mistaken, didn't we get a new errata for it recently? I just got back into the game about maybe 6-8 months ago, and I don't really know. It's been a few years. But I was told that there was supposed to be like a reprint that came out that changed the effect. Bring back the Monster Reborn with that errata. Next, I say Solemn Strike will go down to 2. Because that's just the way Konami tends to do it with the Solemns. They always end up bringing them down one at a time. And they never really finish with that because Solemn is always going to be a good card. Anything Solemn will be pretty much. Now, I bring up the main mentality. Yes, I cringe when I think of this. You can bring Kleeports off the list. Period. Given Pendulums are not 100% dead. But the viability of them in response to the rest of the game is fairly reasonable. Mostly due to the fact that with them going to the back row now, nobody is willing to play only 3 back row zones with 2 pendulum zones. The viability option of that is not as good. The consistency of that would be the same, however, just not really as desirable. And the idea of only being able to special summon 1 monster from the extra deck really kind of hinders pendulums once they hit the extra deck. Spam from your hand all you want. But as soon as it hits that extra deck, you pretty much have to pick and choose your poison. But I think I've done enough ranting for now. I'm going to hop off here, YouTube. This is Dark Strike Fighter. Have a good one.